Okay, we'll just start it there. This is groundbreaking podcasting here. We're coming in real time here. Gary Harris suffers torn meniscus and left knee
Oh, wow.
right after that contract.
Mm.
So that sucks because I was actually a defender of that contract because I just thought the Magic could use a player like that with the way their team was.
He's definitely, I mean, he has value. He brings value to a team. He's a 3-and-D kind of player. I think he's very professional, which is good for some of the young players the Magic have. But yeah, a couple of injuries in the past couple of days. Obviously, the news came out a few days ago that Chet Holmgren's going to miss the entire year, or it sounds like he will, which is obviously not a good thing you want to see. So hopefully everybody else can stay injury free until the start of the preseason.
Yeah, for real. And bigger names like we were talking about in the first episode with Kawhi and Zion too.
Yeah.
So, speaking of that first episode, we did our first round draft trying to rank all the players in the NBA, and now we're gonna do the second round. I won't repeat the first round until I guess the end after we're done with everything, because it's in the first episode. But so, who was the last person that picked? I was the last person that picked, so you would be the first pick, the 31st pick in our draft.
Okay.
I will say before you pick, we were talking about Kyrie a bit in the first episode, and I did have him 31st, just so you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, I know you're not a big Kyrie fan, but talent-wise, obviously, I just figured he deserves to be a little higher up. But there's a lot of names here that I think we're gonna cut probably the first 10 picks or so that are just on the cusp, and there's sort of one or two things keeping them out. I will say the first player that I'm going to draft, I'm very happy to see available right now, and that's going to be Darius Garland, who's one of my favorite players in the league. I know last year I talked about him. I predicted for him to win. He was my leading candidate for most improved player. Didn't end up winning that, but he was definitely one of the candidates for that. He went from a very good player to an all-star. Is the catalyst for the Cavs having a great year. Great point guard, great vision, so athletic, so much speed, and he's developing as a better scorer day and day. And he's not a bad defender either, but he's a great young point guard for the Cavs to have. So he would be my first pick.
Yeah, and all of those skills you mentioned make him work with Mobley and Jared Allen so well. So you love to see that. So we did not pick my next pick, who was number 29th on my board. That was Brandon Ingram, who I will pick 32nd.
I like it.
Pretty self-explanatory. He's a great scorer. Look what he did in the playoffs. Look what he was doing to close out the year. Even CJ McCollum said, "Have y'all been seeing what BI is doing?" So yeah, pretty easy pick here.
Yep, I had Garland was 26th on my list, and Ingram was 27th, so he was going to be my next pick. Especially as a Suns fan, watching what he did to us in that first round. I mean, he played his ass off in that series. It wasn't his fault they ended up losing. Such a talented scorer, so absolutely deserves to be here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So my next pick is going to be Jaylen Brown, and this is the last player that was in my original 30. Had him at 28. Definitely a polarizing figure between the two of us. I just remember watching finals games, and he had a few rough games. He had a few great games as well. It's the consistency that really is the reason he's not higher on this list. Because I mean, when he plays well, he could easily be a top 20, top 15 player in the league. He's just not consistent enough, but he has all the tools. I mean, he's so athletic. His jumper at times, like I said, that's really where the inconsistency is. But when it's on, it's a good jumper. He can drive to the rim. He can defend pretty much 4, if not all 5 positions. I mean, he's a prototypical NBA wing, and he's becoming better as a scorer every day. It's just about being more consistent. But I mean, he's second best player on a Celtics team that made the finals this year, so I think he's deserving at this point.
No, yeah, I agree with all those points. And he was last in my first round, so all of those players are taken in mine. So with the 34th pick, I'll pick Jamal Murray. I know he was out for this past year, but just the scoring he was able to put up in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and just the synergy he has with Jokic, it might be a bit of a biased pick to have him this high, but just seeing what he did in the playoffs, I don't know. Because this range was kind of tough for me right here, because I kind of put a lot of guards that were a bit bias driven, but I still thought had qualities that put them in this echelon, and the playoff factor was a big part of it for me.
Makes sense. I like the pick. I had a few players, as you'll see, that I have a little bit above him, but I think a lot of people are underestimating how good he was. I mean, especially in the bubble, he was arguably one of the hardest players to guard at that point. He's very streaky, but he's such a talented scorer. Needs to grow on the defensive end. People question whether he's a true point guard, but as a pure natural scorer, I mean, he's one of the best. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing him back and healthy this year.
Yeah, I'm super interested to see that.
So my next pick, it's a tough one. I'm going to go for somebody, it might be a reach, but I'm going to go for the other Murray, and that's going to be DeJounte Murray. All-star this year with the Spurs, just got traded to the Hawks for quite a lot of picks and stuff. Main reason why I have him so high is he's such a good defender. I mean, he's a very, very talented defender. Takes on tough matchups. Even as the Spurs, arguably their best scorer, and their best offensive threat, he was still taking on tough matchups. With the Hawks and with playing next to Trae Young, he's probably going to be expected to keep on taking on that dirty work on the defensive end. But also, I mean, he's a very talented scorer. He's a triple-double threat every single night. Not the best jump shot per se, but he's physical. He's pretty athletic. He can get to the rim. He's also his jump shot's improving. He can score from mid range pretty well. I mean, he's a very complete player, and I think at this range, he's an all-star this past year. I think he's going to continue to grow. It'll just be interesting to see, as we've talked before, the fit on the Hawks with Trae Young. But I think as a player, he deserves to be taken at this range.
No, I am really interested to see him with the Hawks as well, and agree with your points. I actually had him quite a bit lower. I had him at 48, and I'm wondering if I had him too low, but I guess we'll keep going through the names, and I'll see if I can make a case for him. But I just can't dispute it too much, because I do feel like after this top 30 range, it is so
yeah.
favoritism
so in my
and stuff
case,
like that.
In my case, I really just have a list, a bunch of names just in a list. I don't even have them really ranked, and I'm just kind of looking at them. And
you're just like picking it right off. Yeah, okay.
It was just too hard to choose between some of these guys. So I mean, I probably have like 50 players right here, and I'm just kind of scrolling through and seeing, who I think is best deserving, and the defense there really put it over the top for me.
So you can't call me super biased because we waited until 36, but I gotta go with LaMelo. He maybe shouldn't be this high. It's debatable because I'm trying to take my fandom out of it, but I just really do value the passing and playmaking. I just think that elevating of other people's games is a pretty important factor. He did lead the team to 43 wins, which is pretty good considering our roster. So I feel like 36 isn't outlandish, but I could see someone having him lower.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the consideration for these next couple picks. It's just a matter of, I mean, he's in this range. He's definitely in this range.
You're trying to let me down easy.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, in my book, looking at the players that are left, he's probably the most gifted passer left on this list. Offensively, obviously, he's pretty talented, but there are some more talented scorers. There's some better defenders. But the one thing I will say, I mean, he's probably the best passer left at this point, and that is a talent, that can propel him up to this range. I just need, you need to see a little bit more defensively. You need to see a
Yeah.
little bit more scoring wise. But I mean, he's the best player on the Hornets, and I don't have any issues with him being selected because this is really the range. It's really about your personal preference. What do you want? So.
Yeah, at least the elite skill of passing makes it justifiable. So,
Yep. Next pick, I really am not the most thrilled about this, but I feel like he kind of has to get picked, and it's going to be Bradley Beal here.
ooh,
And
okay, I had him at 43.
yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, there's not really anything off the court. He just had a bad year with injuries and stuff. I mean, there was stuff off the court, but it wasn't anything too serious. The injuries are the concern. And really, it's just a lot of people saying it's just an empty stat guy and that kind of stuff. I just think a lot of that is a product of playing on a terrible Wizards team. I mean, absolutely dreadful. But I mean, he still is a very talented scorer. He's not that far removed from being an all-star. He is a good player. He's not obviously not the best defensively, but he's not bad. I mean,
He did put up those like back-to-back 50-point games just last year too. So
yeah, no, he still has plenty of talent. He's starting to get a little older, but he's still only, I think, 31, 32 years old. He's just removed from being an all-star. I just think at this point, he's deserving. He's not a top 30 player in my book, but like you said, he's in this range. He's starting to make kind of sense.
last year really did concern me because I know he was going through injuries, but he did fall off pretty hard. And it's not like he's an amazing defender or that he has great size or that he's a great athlete. Like he gets by through his scoring and the 3-pointers on and off. So that's kind of why I had him a bit lower and don't feel really bad about it. But my next pick, this was what was making me excited to do the podcast earlier because you might be mad at me after this one because this is where my board starts to get a bit crazy. Andrew Wiggins. I just at a certain point I could even see someone having him a little higher, but I don't want to overhype what he did in the playoffs. But at a certain point, what I saw in the playoffs, someone that locked down Luka and Tatum and did such a great job contributing with the scoring, even though it was only, like between 18 to 20 points. But he really got good with his mid-range shot. He was really good in those breakaway dunks in the fast break that Curry set him and Draymond set him up with. And ultimately, a lot of people think he was the second best player for a championship team. So I felt like he at least had to be in the top 40.
I'm going to probably surprise you here, but I'm not going to disagree with you.
Ooh.
So I'm looking at some of the names, and really, when I start looking at them, because of the impact he had this postseason, I mean, he really is kind of deserving at this range. There's a few players on this list that I say are more talented or whatever, but he had an amazing. He was the second best player on the Warriors. I don't think there's no disputing that in my book. He's a great defender. He's always had talent to be a good defender. This year specifically with the Warriors, I feel like he really put it together. I mean, offensively, there's jokes. He's just going to give you 16 every single night. There's no real up or down. But getting 16 a night, he does it in a pretty efficient way. He's a really good rebounder for his size, and he plays extraordinary defense. I mean, I don't think you can really complain. The second best player on a championship team. Jaylen Brown went earlier. Obviously, Jaylen Brown's more talented scorer, but Wiggins, I don't think is too far off from Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, and then Wiggins is just like Jaylen Brown. I mean, we were talking about how important those wings are. So, well, where was Wiggins for you on your board?
He, like I said, he was in because remember I don't have him numbered.
Oh,
but
that's true.
He's in the consideration for like he would probably be like one of my next 3 picks, I would say. So
okay,
not far off at all. It does make my decision a little bit easier here. That being said, it still is difficult. I think I'm going to go with Jared Allen here. And
Oh, okay.
I really like Jared Allen. I think you're a pretty big fan of him too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just a great rim protector, but this year he really put it all together on the offensive end. I mean, so good on the glass, and he really started to, use his size in the paint. He was, in my opinion, the second best player on that Cavs team. You can dispute a few other guys that were good on that Cavs team, but he's the anchor down low. And I was so happy for him that he got selected to the All-Star game in Cleveland. I thought the way he was playing, especially at the break, he deserved it. Unfortunately, injuries kind of hurt him down the stretch and made it to where he wasn't fully healthy and couldn't play a lot of the games, or the play-in game against the Nets. But I think he's going to be back next year, and I think he's going to be great. And him and a few other guys on that Cavs team make him really exciting to watch.
And it's interesting you pick him. I had him 45, so not too far off. But this was kind of the range where I was like, okay, I've got Garland, I got Murray, I got LaMelo off the board, and a few others I haven't named. So I'm looking at really good bigs because it's still important to have them, and the skills Jared Allen brings, even though they're more traditional, they're just super important. So I have no disputes with the 39th. I'm not mad about it at all. It's interesting to see though, like Wiggins and Jared Allen as top 40 players. A couple of years ago, that would feel weird, but like after what we saw, it just, I don't know, it just does feel right though. And that would leave me with the 40th pick, and next on my board is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I just really like what he brings as a guard. That length we talk about, with the defense, the potential he brings you there with the length. You look at how he fits with Giddey and stuff. Like, he does need to work on his 3-point shot, no doubt, because he's just a beast at getting to the rim. But I just really like what he brings as a guard and how good he was so fast. It leaves me excited for his potential. So I just felt like he had to be in this range.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. It was between him and Jared Allen for my last pick. So yeah, he was coming off the board next either way.
Okay.
Like you said, tremendous length. It sucks because I want to see him play more. Unfortunately, just the way the Thunder were last year, he just ended up kind of getting shut down, rested a lot. But when he does play, he's so talented. And that's going to be the exciting thing. Hopefully we get to see him and Giddey in the backcourt a lot. I think it's safe to mention Giddey, even though I love him. I don't think he's a top 60 guy yet. But
no.
But just the fit between them is just kind of so it's mouth-watering the way they just play two tremendously athletic guards with the length and all that and the height and the ball handling.
And just so janky looking, both of them. But that's what you want in basketball, because just the diversity in play style and body type.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shai really, I don't want to say he's a complete player, but he really is a complete guard in a lot of ways.
All he needs is that better 3-point shot.
Yeah. So I mean, I think and that's just one of those things he can develop. But I think he's talented. Obviously, it's just a matter of when are the Thunder going to be competitive. I think that's when you really start to see the national media take notice of him. Because I think right now, they're just kind of like, oh well, he's just scoring points for the Thunder. But he's absolutely a great player.
Or if he's even still on the Thunder in a couple of years. So
that is the question. Yeah. So, unfortunately, like I said, he's going to be my next pick, so it puts me in a bit of a predicament here. Because of that, I'm going to go with one of my favorite players in the league, and he plays up in Canada, and that's going to be Fred VanVleet.
Whoa, that was my next pick.
Yeah. As you might notice, I'm kind of cleaning up a lot of these all-stars here, a lot of guys that in the All-Star game this past year, but Fred VanVleet had an incredible year. I mean, really, when you look at it, he was the only true point guard on the Raptors roster after the whole Goran Dragic debacle or whatever happened there. Big expectations, obviously, officially filling the shoes of Kyle Lowry, although he kind of had been doing that for years now. he took the point guard role and he absolutely flourished. I mean, he's he's completely the opposite of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
Shorter, stockier, but his handle is so quick and clean. I mean,
Something about that is so appealing because he just seems like a normal man taking on Goliaths, but he's just so good at defense and doing all the little things. And I watched him at Wichita a lot too. Well, not a lot, but in the tournament at least. So.
I did too. Those Wichita teams were fun to watch, and
Ron Baker.
Yep, Ron. I forgot about Ron Baker, but yes, Ron Baker. But yeah, he deserves to be picked at this range. And I it's really just a matter of health for him. Unfortunately, he had a bit of a tough end of the year after the All-Star break. A lot of injuries started piling up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people would agree that if he's fully healthy, they beat the Sixers in that first round series. But yeah, he's the leader of that young Raptors team, him or Siakam, and I look forward to seeing him keep on, hopefully producing and making more All-Star teams in the future.
Is Ron Baker on Cameo? That's what we have to find out for our next show.
Oh my God.
So with the 42nd pick, you're gonna like this one, DeAndre Ayton. My boy. I'm a huge DA fan.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't leave him off for too much longer because I just love everything he brings to the table. Enough said. And I wish he did a little more on offense. That's a little bit his fault, a little bit Chris Paul and Devin Booker's fault. And it's something they all need to work out and have a good little common middle ground. And I think y'all are in for a successful season if y'all could figure it out, because he's in this range. He's in the upper echelon, the top 50.
Yeah, I've been considering the past couple picks, but they were just, Van Vliet and Allen were a little bit too hard to pass up.
Yeah.
But especially once I picked Allen, I was like, there's not any other centers on this board.
You might have convinced me that Allen might be above him for me, but
it's close.
It's hard.
I kind of gave the nod just because Allen has the production, and like you said, I don't think that's DeAndre Ayton's fault. I mean, you saw in the playoffs when Booker was out. I mean, he absolutely was. He was probably our best player against the Pelicans. Obviously Chris Paul gets all the credit, as he should, for that closeout game, 14 for 14. DeAndre Ayton was doing 25 points a game very efficiently against a big Pelicans team with Valanciunas. And Jackson Hayes and Ingram and Herb Jones. I mean, they're just a huge team, and he was dominating on the glass and scoring 25 points in a very efficient manner. His jump shot is taking off. I mean, his jump shot is so good at this, at this point in his career. He's already got a great mid-range. You saw him start to take threes this year. It's very exciting, and I'm very happy. The whole ordeal between him and the team sounds like they're actually on good footing again, which is needed because, I mean, he's one of the most talented centers in the league, and he absolutely, it's a good thing that the Suns brought him back. So my next pick, there's a few options here. There's one I'm tempted to say, but I feel like I'm going to get thrown out of my head for it. And I think I'm going to take him anyways. And it's going to be Ben Simmons here.
Oh my. Make the case.
So, to me, I just started looking at the name, and I'm just saying, going into 2 years ago, he probably would have been in the top 30. It's debatable. It certainly is debatable, but going into a few years ago...
See, this is why I wish we had this 2 years ago to see.
Yeah, but, I mean... talent-wise, there's really no disputing it. Obviously, the jump shooting and the free throw shooting is abysmal. I mean, there's no really other way around that. Every other aspect of the game, I mean, he's simply, he's an incredible defender, one of the best defenders in the league, if not the best. Just being 6'10", he's got the lateral quickness, he's got the size, he's got the strength. I mean, he really can guard 1 through 5 pretty easily. We were talking about the Nets in the last episode and what their plan is. There's talks he could play center. I mean, he could play center. He could play point guard, and Kyrie could play off ball. There's so many possibilities with him as a player. He's such a talented passer. He's got the size to score over smaller defenders. It's really just about that jump shot. But at this range, I'm just looking at some of the guys, I'm just looking at some of these defensive specialists who don't score, and it's like I just think Ben Simmons with the passing trait and the athleticism and the size, and then obviously with his defensive ability, I just think at this point, although all the off the court stuff is why he's down this low, I think at this point he's kind of eligible to be taken off the board. I don't love it, but I think it was time for him to be picked.
Yeah, so I definitely get what you're saying. Lots of versatility, and what he did bring was good. But his offense isn't just a jump shot. He has a hard time finishing around the rim for someone who doesn't have a jump shot. And yeah, just the whole situation. Maybe I overreacted with the whole Kyrie and Ben Simmons with my ranking thing. I had him down at 55 just because it just left such a bad taste in my mouth that I don't even think the potential of what he brings makes it worth it for me. And maybe I shouldn't be looking at it like that, but that's just why I could not have him in this range. Not so. And someone who I had next also might actually be a little controversial to you. That's why I actually like this part of the list, because it's kind of bringing some weird names out of the mix. I had Draymond, and I know he seemed kind of cooked for a lot of the year and a lot of the playoffs. And maybe this won't age really well as the season comes along, but I just thought his defensive impact in the playoffs is just what elevated them a lot of the time. And then when they needed to beat the Celtics, he showed up big. So that's why I had to have him in this range. Because like Ben Simmons just didn't even show up last year, but I just saw Draymond do it and win the finals.
It's I don't want to say it's controversial. Yeah, it is controversial. But if you look at his range, okay, so he's on my list, obviously, of my many players.
But you wouldn't have him in this range, though.
I probably would, probably another 10 picks or so. It's tough for me to say because regular season wise, he's absolutely would be in this range, if not higher. It's just because of that. I mean, I don't want to call it a dud of a playoffs because I mean he still brought value defensively, but
he really carried them on defense a lot of the playoffs when they had to go to him and Otto Porter. And granted, Otto Porter did a good job too, but just not just what he brought to defense, but the communication aspect and everything too. That kind of went into my thought making here.
Oh yeah, intangibles and leadership absolutely, can spring them into this range.
And maybe that shouldn't be as big of a factor though. That's why I'm saying this wasn't the perfect pick either. Right next to Ben, which is funny because a lot of people say how Ben Simmons could be the Draymond of the Nets, and we both have these two right in this range.
Yeah, they are. It is similar when you mention it that way. Yeah. I mean, he's at this range where, like I said, it's very subjective. And, the thing is I've started to respect Draymond more over the years because of what he does bring besides scoring. I mean, he's very, there were people talking about when he had that injury in like February and March and the Warriors were actually kind of struggling. And people were saying, oh, this proves that Draymond is the glue to the Warriors and not Steph Curry, which is obviously bullshit. I mean, it obviously is. But, people were having those discussions in the regular season. So, and like I said earlier, regular season wise, if you just calculate that, you could even argue he could be in the top 30. I mean, you really could make that argument. So I don't hate it at all. It's just it is a little bit of recency bias. I mean, let's be honest. But he still won a championship and was one of the better players on the championship team. So I get the pick there. I just think there's a few players that I have above him, but I do get the pick.
All right, I felt like we met in the middle there then.
Yeah. So this next one is tough because I see a few names that I really love. Homer options here, and the question is whether I want to pull the trigger on one of them. This is tough. This is really tough. I don't think I'm going to go for the Homer pick. I'm going to go for a player I really love, and it may be a little too early for him, but just because of so much potential he has, and that's going to be Scotty Barnes here.
Okay.
I think it's probably a little too early for him, but there's a few guys I'm comparing to him here, and I'm just thinking, Scotty Barnes just brings a little bit more to the table than these guys. And the main reason why, obviously, prototypical wing. If not even better than that. He's bigger than the prototypical wing, and he can play 1 through 5. As we were talking about earlier with Fred VanVleet being the only point guard, Scotty Barnes was essentially the backup point guard as well.
Yeah.
His ball handling, he's got a great feel for the game already. His passing is only going to continue to get better, and it was already at a great level for a rookie. Small forward, power forward combo, whichever you want to consider him as. And also, he's a great defender. He's a great defender for his size. I saw a lot of times in the playoffs, having him on James Harden, the best perimeter player on the Sixers. It's so scary that he's so good already, and he's only been in the league 1 year. He's going to be such a good player. All you have to really do is look at the KD trade rumors that people were saying, Scotty Barnes, Raptors didn't want to give him up for Kevin Durant. And the reason is he's so young and he's already so talented. I could easily see him becoming an all-star this year.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. I completely agree with all those points. It's interesting because I would have thought I would have had him higher on my board because I had him 47, and some of the names I had ahead of him would interest you, to put it in your terms. And one of them I should not have put above him, but you're going to love the pick regardless, so it'll make it worth it once we get there.
Yeah.
So with the 46 pick, I guess that leaves me with Evan Mobley. And I know it's weird that I had him ranked higher than Scotty Barnes, considering I'm such a huge Scotty Barnes fan. And going with bias, I think Scotty Barnes will be better. But as of right now, I just feel like what Mobley brings on defense already, and he's got a decent package on offense, and we'll see this year. He'll probably just keep getting better. So I just trust the overall package a little bit more this year, since it is an entering 2022-2023 season list. So that's why I have Mobley a little ahead, but they're in the same range. And it's cool to see that the elite 2021 draft is already having its fingerprints in the top 50.
Yeah, no real complaints from me. I was probably looking at him closer to 60, but
okay.
To me, Scotty Barnes just has that it factor, and I'm not saying Mobley doesn't, because he absolutely does, but Scotty Barnes I just love Scotty Barnes. I love Mobley too. But the one thing I will say is both of them are really, I don't want to call them unicorns, because it's something that gets thrown out a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But with that being said, they both freaks, and Evan Mobley specifically just because of his height and his lateral quickness, he's he's just so talented on the defensive end that he doesn't even really need to produce at the offensive end, but he exceeded my expectations on the offensive end, and he's only going to continue to grow on that end of the court, and he's already one of the best defenders in the league, perimeter and interior.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, you want to go on with the next?
Yeah, I'm not a tough. I got some tough decisions to make here.
Drafting on the clock.
Yeah, it is tough. It's like fantasy football season. I'm gonna go because there's two guys that I'm kind of down to here, and I'm gonna go Homer here. And I'm going to end up going with Desmond Bane, my guy.
Whoa! See, that's who I was talking about, who I had Scotty Barnes one spot behind.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's probably a little bit Homer. The guy I'm comparing him to is, in my book, a very similar player who was on a more successful team, if that gives anybody any hints. But, he just had an incredible year this year. You heard Ja Morant. You heard Ja Morant say, he deserved the most improved player over Ja Morant.
He probably did too, because the leap he made was insane. And by the way, I did have him 46 on my list. Like it's so interesting that we both had him in this range because I thought I was going to surprise you with that, but we're both just huge Desmond Bane fans.
Yes, this is the Desmond Bane fan channel.
Yeah,
but,
maybe that should be the podcast name, the Desmond Bane fan club.
Bane and Bridges fan club, but Mikhail. Anyways, might be seeing him come off soon.
Yep.
Anyways, Desmond. Yeah, there's just so many things you can say about him.
He's yoked. He's ripped.
He's literally ripped. And in terms of a pure jump shot, like it's
so pure. It's so perfect.
It's effortless.
It looks like short man Michael Porter Jr. jump shot a little bit. Am I off basis there?
No, I don't necessarily think so. I do think Porter gets a little bit more leap in his jump shot.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just using his height instead of, Bane's a little bit shorter. But, it does, making jump shots doesn't make you a good player. Desmond Bane, his jump shot is amazing, but it's other things as well. He's already a very good defender. I mean, his size also helps. I mean, he really could probably guard 1 through 4 because he's just freaking yoked. I mean, we've talked about it so much. He's a great fit next to Ja. And, he's going to improve defensively even more. Even his passing this year, that was the thing. His scoring went up, and you're just like, oh, well, that's great. But he's not a bad passer either.
Passing, especially in the fast break, because him and Kyle Anderson, they told Desmond Bane, we want the ball in your hands in transition. We don't just want it in Ja's hand. So that was such a great aspect to see come out. In only his second year, too. It's so exciting to see.
Yeah, but I love the guy. I just figured I just got to take him off the board. There's a few homer picks probably coming in the next couple picks. I hate to say.
Yeah, well, I was getting close to your boy, but next on my board, I'm wondering how close he was in this range for you. I had to get Sabonis off because I feel like 48 we're pushing it because Sabonis, he's got problems on defense, and I know you're basing your list a lot on defense, but his offensive game, you mentioned LaMelo being the best passer left. That's how I feel about this pick now. Because, I mean, between him and Ben Simmons is probably better in this range, but for a big man, he's pretty goddamn impressive as a passer as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He was probably my best big man left on the board at this point, him or another guy. That's probably going to get picked by me at some point. But, I mean, he's so talented on the offensive end. Like you said, the defense is really why I hadn't picked him yet. Offensively, I mean, he's better than Ayton. He's better than Jared Allen. He's better than Mobley. I mean, it's just a matter of he just doesn't do it on a two-way basis. But he has so many attributes, especially with like his feel for the game, his vision and all that. He's very similar to Jokic in that that kind of mold. Not as good because Jokic is just incredible, but he's not that far off. And his ball handling, you saw it when he does those skills challenges on All-Star Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He's the kind of guy who could be a point forward if he wants to. He doesn't necessarily do it. He's got a great feel in the post, and he's also a very good rebounder as well. He does everything right on the offensive end. It's just the defense why he fell. But you're right. He probably, there's a case to be made. He should have gotten picked earlier. But yeah, no complaints at this point. He was my best big man left on the board.
All right, pull the trigger. I know who you're gonna pick. Just do it already.
Oh man, I don't think I can actually do it yet.
Oh.
And I got to go with this one guy, and this may be a little bit too much respect just off of his past, but I got to go Klay Thompson here.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And that was my thing with Desmond Bane. I think him and Klay are kind of similar players at this point in their career. And it does pain me because, I mean, there's obviously my boy right there who's like my next pick. I mean, unless you take him. He doesn't have the defensive capability that he used to, or at least he didn't really show it this year. But at the same time, I'm kind of optimistic that he's going to actually improve from this year because he just came off some horrific, for some people that would be career-ending injuries, and he's just starting to get his feet back. I think everything will improve for him after a full off season of conditioning and stuff. I feel like a lot of his jump shooting woes were because he just doesn't have the legs that he used to. I mean, obviously reputation wise helps him. A championship also helps him in this rankings. But I think there's a solid case. He can return, maybe not to prime Klay Thompson, but he can be very close to that with the defensive ability and then just the microwave scoring, the incredible jump shot from
because some of those playoff games he just came in and even because I really like how much you've maintained your belief in Klay, because I have like soured on him a bit, which I really shouldn't have, because you made a good point with him dealing with the injuries. I was just looking at it from a like game perspective, like nothing against him. The injuries are why it's like this. But he did fall off on defense for sure, but that shot was not lost, and he's got the best jump shot in the NBA. Steph is the best shooter ever, but Klay's got the smoothest jump shot. So I actually respect the pick, even though it's probably dumb he wasn't in my top 60 just because of that regression. But you make an optimistic point that, yeah, he probably can come back from it. Like that, he had just come back from injury halfway through the season, so...
Yeah, it was tough, but I mean, the championship, the reputation, that kind of stuff keeps him on this list for now. He's gonna have to prove it, or he won't be on this list next year. But
I still think so. My next pick is Mikal Bridges. I think you got to put Mikal over him just because of the blend of offense and defense. But I can see the case though. Actually, if someone's like, no, I value the high spark plug. I could make 7 3-pointers over like good perimeter defender that sometimes shows up great on offense.
Yeah, maybe it's a case of me being so Homer. I'm trying not to be Homer and pick Bridges. I
can see it either way. Like, and this actually feels like a good range for both of them, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably just say, Mikal's my favorite player in the league. It's either him or Booker. I mean, he's just... I could talk about Mikal Bridges all day. There's a reason the podcast was named after him.
Do you like the new thumbnail?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I mean, Mikal Bridges is defensively is so freaking talented. I think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year this year. Obviously, that is pure bias, but I mean, I think he should have. He was the best defender on the best team in the regular season. And the thing is, it's really about his offensive game, and you just see it, the sparks. His jump shot isn't the most natural thing in the world. Some people
but it's still good. It's a good jumper.
It's effective for him. He has it mastered, and I mean, he shoots a good percentage from three. He regressed a little bit this year from the previous year, but I think a lot of that was just he was being asked to do more on the ball, and I think that's really the strategy coming into this year, especially if the Suns, they're not going to improve with the trade for a Kevin Durant or another All-Star or something like that. The ask is going to be for him to do more on the ball, dribble, get good jump shots off of screens and stuff. And I think he'll be able to, because I mean, you see the signs of it. I mean, the game that really showed it for me was Game 5 against the Pelicans this year at home. Chris Paul was, I wouldn't say tired, but he was being hounded. All the attention was on him with no Devin Booker. Ayton didn't have one of his best games. He played solid. Bridges shows up, literally plays, I think, 45 or 46 minutes, has over 30 points, plays tremendous defense on McCollum and Ingram. I mean, he's just so talented. We talk about Wiggins and the range above. Based on regular season performance, Bridges would be above Wiggins. Wiggins has that playoff momentum going for him, but I think he can be better than Wiggins on the offensive end and provide the same defensive ability. It's just all about putting the pieces together on the offensive end. But he is the greatest. I love the guy. He's awesome.
He's a great way to round out the top 50, which leaves me interested to who you're going to pick with 51. Like, this range was weird for me, but I still kind of like some of my picks here. But who you got?
Oh man, this is really, really tough. I think I'm gonna go with more potential here. I mean, it's weird to say.
That's where I was at this range too, because I thought, hey, we got top 50 out of the way, so here's some potentials.
We picked Evan Mobley earlier, and this is a guy that I think is a little bit similar to him. I'm going to go Jaren Jackson Jr. here.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
it's a tough one for me because we talked about Jaylen Brown earlier and the inconsistencies on the offensive end. Jaren is very inconsistent, and even on the defensive end too. I don't want to say
Yeah.
necessarily inconsistent on the defensive end. 'Cause I
Especially
think
with the fouling, because that's a big part of it.
that's exactly what I'm just getting to there was the fouling. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's tough to necessarily rely on him defensively in a game because he's just being attacked. Especially what I noticed was in the Timberwolves series this year. He should be the guy playing center, guarding Towns and stuff, and they just couldn't even do it because Towns would just get him in foul trouble immediately, and that's why you had to see a lot of Steven Adams instead in that series. But I'm hoping that with more age and especially playoff experience, he's gonna start getting smarter. And then, on the offensive end, I said inconsistent, which is obviously true, but also, I mean, he had some absolute games where he just went off, especially from three. I mean, his jump shot, there can be criticisms
Yeah,
of it.
he really did go off in the playoffs a few times. I was like, what is going on right now? Holy crap.
It was pretty insane, but he's just had such a tantalizing mix of athleticism and size and the ability to really guard and be switchable onto guys. He can guard centers. He can really switch on to guards as well. I just think at this range, I don't think he's too far off of Evan Mobley, and that's why I think at this range it makes too much sense to pick him.
That's why I had him in my top 60. I had him a little lower because I actually went way more on that keyword potential. I had Cade as my next pick, and maybe I'm overrating him. He only had one good stretch to close out the year because he did start struggling, but he was coming off of an injury. But I just value that playmaking and shooting and his size. He's not as big as you would want from someone that's touted to be like a big Luka type, but I just love his feel for the game and his ball handling. And like I was talking about with LaMelo, I just value that floor general ability. So I feel like even now, even though it's only his second year, young players are really good. I feel like it's not outlandish to have him in this range as like who you would want even in a game right now.
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit too early to have him in my top 60. He's not far off at all. He's on my list of players, but I just think there's a few guys that have above him. But yeah, I mean,
I thought you would like the pick though.
I do like the
you would respect that I'm trying to creep him in here.
No, I don't have any issues with it because there's just a lot of guards that I'm looking at and I'm just kind of like, Cade really isn't that far off of them.
Yeah, like I was looking De'Aaron Fox, CJ McCollum, Cade. Yeah, I'll take Cade because of the ball handling and control he plays with and playmaking. Well, they still have good play, but you know what I mean.
I think it's perfectly fair to take him at this range. It's just there's a few guys that I take above him.
All right, for the record, when we listen to this in a year, I might have gotten carried away, but who knows? We'll see.
I mean, some picks are just made. They just should be taken, and I don't think it's that far off. I just think at this point right now, just the natural scoring ability of a CJ McCollum, who will be my pick here.
Okay.
I think just a little bit. He just has the production at this point. So that's CJ. I think he really flourished after that trade to the Pelicans. He really got the reins to be the lead guard on that team, and it was such a good trade. I mean, it was really at the time we're kind of like, oh, it's interesting, kind of a lateral move for him going from a playoff. Well, the Blazers weren't, but a fledgling playoff team to another team trying to make the playoffs.
And I thought he fit the Pelicans uniform. He looked good on the team.
But it's perfect for them. I mean, we talk about the Pelicans and the scary potential they have in this upcoming year and years with all those young players. CJ is really the vet on that team now, and I think he really fits the role. We talk about Chris Paul and the Suns. I think it's a similar situation. Obviously, he's not Chris Paul, but he's such a deadly scorer. Defensively, there's always question marks, but he just scores so well. He does it in an efficient way. He can get hot at times. I mean, there's been times where he just goes off, and I'm just like, oh my God, there's literally nothing you can do. So I just think his scoring at this range makes it to where I think he deserves to be a top 60 player in the league.
See, now you're making me feel dumb because I had some other names above him. He was 52nd on my list, but god dang, I'm gonna stick with my list. I'm not gonna stray from it because you'll like my next pick, even though it's really similar to the Cade pick because it's Paulo Banchero.
Ooh.
So I know how that sounds. Like way too early. He hasn't even played an NBA game yet. How is he a top 54 players? The way I looked at this was just what I've seen in college and what I saw in summer league. Even though it's college and summer league and it was brief, I'm just like, with his body type. And the reason I had him above like CJ, even though CJ has way more reps, and that was probably stupid. But the reason I did was just because his body frame, body type, I think he's already in his first year of the NBA going to have a huge impact in scoring, rebounding, and maybe even playmaking, because it seemed like his playmaking was pretty good in summer league. So we'll just have to see how it translates. And him playing with Franz Wagner, I mean, it's probably too early, but that was one of my other wild picks to throw out here at you.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. He's not in my top 60.
You just sound like Simon from American Idol, dude.
I mean, God, Simon Cowell is great. But I just don't really love. I mean, obviously, this is the first year we've actually really done this officially, but I don't really love putting rookies there. I just need to see something from him. Summer League, he showed me a lot in Summer League, like all the things you just mentioned. But it's just, I think it's a little bit too early in the same way. It's too early to put Cade there based off of last season, and then obviously like Jalen Green and those kind of players. You know,
see, you're here to reel me in.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm him and Jabari and Chet, all of them, the potential they have. I just, if you would have asked me last year, I wouldn't have any of those rookies in the top 60 either. I mean, Cade would have been the closest, and you look at it, he's not really in my top 60 either. But next year, I mean, he could easily be where Mobley and Scotty Barnes is, if not higher, because, I mean, the tools he has, like you mentioned, he could be a great scorer immediately, and it's something the Magic needed. Initially I was all in on the potential of Chet, but I mean, Banchero has just as much potential in my book because of what he can do on the offensive end.
Yeah, so it's just like with the Cade pick, but even worse. So we'll just see how it pans out. It was probably a cheating pick, so we'll just have to see.
This is tough now. It's been tough for a while now to make these picks.
Yeah.
I kind of have to go De'Aaron Fox here.
Yeah, you got to.
There's players I really want to take over him, but I mean, he's clearly the best player left. He's been one of the best players on this board for probably a little while even. So, I mean, a little bit disrespectful for him. And I have nothing against the guy. It's just
I just like other guys a little better.
Yeah, I like other guys better, and it's just kind of his situation on the Kings. But, it's funny because I hate to make everything Suns related, but, there's people talking about, successors to Chris Paul and stuff like that. And really, De'Aaron Fox makes a good bit of sense, to succeed Chris Paul. And the reason is like, I mean, athletically, he's lightning fast. I mean, he may be the quickest player in the league. He's got good ball handling skills. He can finish inside. The jump shot leaves a bit to be desired, but it's still developing. It's just one of those things. I mean, he produces. He just straight up produces. I mean, he gets the points. He gets decent assist numbers as well. He's not the best passer in the world, but he's developing. And defensively, he's not bad. I mean, he's not bad at all. He's not the most talented defender per se, but he does a good job. I feel like he contributes. He puts in the effort. And just based off of pure statistical production, he's the best player at this range.
No complaints there. And I'm going to follow that up with his teammate from last year, Tyrese Halliburton. because I just think he's really good and
Yeah.
a top of the line pure point guard, which is more rare than you would think. Just like we talked about with the stretch five thing, it's more rare than you would think, but he's just great in every aspect. He's the biggest reason I watch some Pacers games this year.
One of the only reasons, yeah, him and
Mathurin
and yep, I struggle to
and
pronounce his
Duarte.
name. Yeah, Duarte too, the 25-year-old second-year man or 24 years old, one of the older players, similar to Cam Johnson, who may or may not be picked. We'll have to see. So that puts me in another position, but
You filthy bastard.
apologies for that. Anyways, my next pick is going to be a guy I really like too, and he fits, some of the players Wiggins, Mikal Bridges picked earlier. It's going to be RJ Barrett here.
Okay.
And this one's a little interesting for me because just based off of pure production, he may not really make sense over a couple of guys that are left on the list. But, I don't even really want to say potential at this stage, but just, the ability he has. He can take over games. He's a talented scorer. He's talented on the defensive end. He puts in the effort there. He takes on the tough matchups. All I have to really say is, there are people discussing, a trade for Donovan Mitchell, and I'm just like, I don't think I'd trade RJ Barrett for Donovan Mitchell. And, we had Donovan Mitchell in our top 20. Like, that's just, I just think very highly of Barrett. It may just be too early for him, but.
No, I like the range. He was like not in my top 60, but in the he would have been in the next 10 in the top 60. So he's definitely up there.
Yeah, I just like him too much at this range. I think really when you look at it on an offensive scale, I think he's got more offensive ability than Bridges and Wiggins. It's just he doesn't have the defensive ability, but he's a very good defender at the same time.
And just his body type isn't as promising to me as those guys either.
Yeah.
So this might be a weird pick after him for me, but I picked Time Lord actually because I know he might not scream top 60 talent, and then he's got the injury problems all the time. But I just thought the way he contributed in the playoffs, whenever he played, the impact he had, he's the perfect shining example of what we can only hope in Hornets land that Mark Williams turns out to be. And look at that. I had to bring up a Hornets reference. I forgot we even existed.
Yeah. He's not too far off in my list. He was going to be one of those names I'd be considering. He probably just misses out. But I mean, it's just because he just doesn't necessarily do a ton on the offensive end. But I mean, he brings the energy on the boards, which can't complain about. And I mean, defensively, he might be the best defensive center in the league. I feel like I've said it for a couple guys now. I mean, he's not Rudy Gobert, I guess, but he's pretty damn close.
Up there. He's in the Mount Olympus of defenders at the center position.
For sure. So yeah, no complaints for me on that end.
Can I guess who you're gonna pick next?
Sure.
Tyler Hero.
No.
Okay,
he's on my list, but I'm gonna go for a more complete player.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I shouldn't say more complete because he doesn't have the offensive ability of Hero, but he is so good defensively, and I think I got to go with the defensive player of the year here, Marcus Smart. And this is a tough one for me because just on offensive game purely alone, I watch Marcus Smart and I'm just kind of like, how does he actually score, 15 a game or something like that?
Hey, that little push shot he's got near the paint is pretty decent.
Yeah, but when you look at it, I mean, he is talented because of his physicality. I mean, that's the thing. He's, I just remember in the finals watching Jrue Holiday, post up on our guards and stuff. And Marcus Smart can do the similar things. He just doesn't have the necessarily like the shooting touch to be able to do all that kind of stuff. But with that being said, I mean, he is a very, very good player. I mean,
he's got the leadership qualities too.
Yes, that is a very good point too. We were talking about Draymond and his intangibles earlier. I just think, I just think at this range, because of his accolades, and I don't want to say accolades mean everything, because I value talent more. But defensive player of the year, he proved it throughout the playoffs. He took on the tough assignments. He did it the whole regular season, obviously too. I just think at this range, because of how good he is defensively, we took Jrue Holiday in the top 30.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Jrue Holiday is a better defender in my book.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, Marcus Smart is pretty damn close, and he offers good production at the offensive end. So I think you got to take him.
It's interesting we have back-to-back Celtics there. But yeah, this is making me feel more dumb about having Paolo so high. I'm gonna see that this is good. This is why we do this. So next pick, our 60th best player, end of round 2 here. I picked Jordan Poole, and that actually goes with the whole Time Lord Marcus Smart picks. He was better this year than you would actually think if you look at the stats. Like, he put up very good stats throughout the year, even though for a large portion of games he was coming off the bench. He adjusted to Clay coming back. He did whatever they asked him to do. And even though he really irked me a lot of the time in the playoffs, that explosiveness he had going to the basket, and the fact that he could come in and just do Curry things, like hit half-court shots and crazy three-pointers, he was super valuable for a title team. So I felt like it was just, I could not leave him out of the top 60. Because I did really respect what he did growing from a G leaguer to that impactful so quickly.
Yeah, I can't really hate on the pick here either. There's a few guys around this range that I'm looking at. I'm looking at
I looked at him versus Tyrese Maxey, and I'm just like, well, he put up better numbers than Maxey, and he won the championship.
I'm looking at Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson. I mean, those kind of guys. Then I'm looking at guys like OG and maybe
Could Hero have done what he did in the playoffs?
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, that's really the thing. The playoff production. He won a championship. He won them in that first round series. I mean, he was starting over Steph Curry. Obviously, injuries for the reason for that. But he's very, very talented on the offensive end, and I can't really complain at this range. He would be in my next 10 picks for sure. So I mean, we're at the point now where a lot of it's personal preference. So I can't complain at this range.
All right, this is a really good top 60 then. So the first podcast that had the first round, I'll just quickly read out our second round and we'll wrap up there. So our second round started with you, Patrick. It was Darius Garland, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Jamal Murray, and then DeJounte Murray, LaMelo Ball, Bradley Beal, Andrew Wiggins, Jared Allen, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's 40. Fred VanVleet, DeAndre Ayton, Ben Simmons, Draymond Green, Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, Desmond Bane, Domantas Sabonis, Klay Thompson, Mikal Bridges. That's 50. Jaren Jackson, Cade Cunningham, CJ McCollum, Paulo Banchero, De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, RJ Barrett, Time Lord, Marcus Smart, and Jordan Poole. That's 60. I feel like we did a pretty good job with this whole list.
I think we did too. I mean, I think that especially the top 30, I think we did a really, really good job. And
I feel like I messed up with the Paulo thing, man. That's gonna haunt me.
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, you're buying into it. You can't. It's just my personal thing. I just don't take rookies that early. But like I said, the way I'm making this sound is like we do this every year. But next year, I probably won't take Wembanyama.
I might
have to, because Wembanyama is just a freak. I mean, I'd be the guy in 2003 be like, nah, I ain't taking LeBron James in the top 60. So this is obviously subjective.
I do want to mention real quick 2 players that were kind of in my honorable mentions for the next kind of range. which
Fair.
have similar like aspects, which is Julius Randle and Michael Porter Jr. I'm really interested to see if for you know, whether it be injury or like mood related stuff, I hope those two bounce back and get higher on our list next year, because I just love both of those players.
Yeah, Randall was close for me. I didn't really have Porter. Porter is probably closer to like the 75, 80 range.
Yeah, I mean, I know he is just a shooter. I guess I'm just biased because I saw him live, and that was just, it won me over.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at Julius Randle, Tyrese, OG, Finney Smith, something like. I mean, Finney Smith probably, or Tyler Hero.
That's
Hero's
a good pick, Finney Smith. I should have thought of that.
It's just I kind of have a little bit of a man crush on any wing that plays defense and shoots threes.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm with you.
He was the second best player.
I
for
just
the
wish he could
Suns
finish next to the rim, dude.
He should be able to, because I mean he's a tall wing. I mean he's got
super
good size. Yeah, but maybe a year's improvement. You know, no more Jalen Brunson. Maybe he'll take a more definitive role in that Mavericks offense. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Well, hey, we did it, dude. That was great. Now we have our time capsule for this next season. We'll have to check back and maybe even do a mid-season one, like we were saying. Any final thoughts on our top 60 NBA players right now?
I think it's a good list to me. I mean, I'm happy with my picks pretty much. You know, there were some tough ones. I mean, as you could probably tell, you know, the debates I was having before the picks. But I think we've done a solid job here. So
we're going to have to, on the new 2K franchise mode, each of our teams with all of our picks and see who has a better record.
I will say, just off of starting five, I think I have you beat in 2K because I have Giannis and KD.
Yeah, and Jokic and Luka can't stop shit.
Yeah, but there's no shame. There's no shame in that. To be fair, Devin Booker is trash in 2K, so.
Well, he better be good in the next one, dang it.
I hope so. But
all right, Patrick, it was fun, man.
Of course, man.